Alright, welcome again guys to this online classes of IELTS, and we have done our two modules which are listening and reading, and today I will tell you about writing module and every information you need to know about writing module. So let's go on. Okay, you have 60 minutes of total time. There are actually two tasks, or you can say two questions, writing task 1 and writing task 2. You should spend 20 minutes on task 1 and 40 minutes on task 2, but there is no specific schedule for all those tasks because they'll provide you a booklet and you will have 1 hour to complete your task. Writing task 1 should be of 150 words and task 2 of 250 words. Task 1 is based on a report, bar chart, graph or polygraph. I will show you an example. And task 2 is usually based on an essay. The score of task 1 is worth 1/3 and for the task 2 is worth 2/3, which means, for example, 35% marks is from task 1 and the remaining marks are from task 2. You can either use pencil or pen for writing module, it's your choice. You can also get extra paper for writing module if you need one. So now I'm gonna show you example of task 1 and yes, I will upload these files with the video. You will find a link below and then you can go on and also watch all these documents or examples and also those tips. Okay, so task 1 is usually depends. It could be like this graph or maybe this graph or this graph. It could also be like bar chart or polygraph like this one, and also be a diagram. So what you have to do, it's a very also nice diagram. So what you have to do, you have to explain the chart or diagram what it's saying. Let's have a question. Two maps below show an island before and after the construction of some tourist facilities. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So the question is, you have to compare two maps. Number one, this one before and after this one, and you have to compare it, or you have to write at least 150 words. If you write less than 150 words, they will deduct your marks, but if you write between 150 and 170, it's okay, but not more than 180 because you will be consuming much time and you have to also do second task, so manage your time. So I will show you first tips of this task 1 and then some very useful vocabulary of this task, because as according to my experience, task 1 is just about vocabulary. If you have a bunch of vocabularies and you have very good sense of comparing the values or comparing, for example, take example of this here, bank, maroon one is woman, blue is men. So you can compare that men running errands and men bank are compared. Although this one visiting friends and bank for women is also comparable. So you have to actually watch these kinds of similarities in these graphs. So let's hop into some task tips. Okay, 3 minutes, understand the paragraph, what it's saying about, what are the key points, what you have to write about. 2 minutes preparing the overlay for the task, 12 minutes for writing and 2 minutes for checking. This is the time map which I used in my IELTS exam, but I pretty messed it up because I didn't understand the graph. Because first you will have listening test, then you will be having a reading test, and at the end because after maybe 2 hours you will be pretty much tired, and also it's like a tension during IELTS, so they design it to a like they also are checking your tension level, how you speak English or how you respond to English in your tension. Okay, you should write about 3 to 4 paragraphs with minimum 150 words. Less than this would result in reduction of your marks. Try to finish your task with maximum 170 words, or else it would have a negative impression on your scores, and also you will not have so much time left for the task too. Okay, so what is paraphrasing, or what is the first paragraph? As I told you here that you have to write of 3 to 4 paragraphs, and the first paragraph should be the introduction of your graph or of your task. For example, if they have given a graph to you, then just write the graph shows and some questions and what the graph shows actually. This, or maybe this diagram illustrates the, or the map shows the trend in, or take more example. I will give you further example in task 1. So the first paragraph is about, in which you give the introduction about your task. For example, if they given me a diagram of a school, so I will write this diagram shows some of the facilities and rooms of a school from this period to this period. I will give you example later. Academic language, try not to use non-academic language. For example, in the below chart you can see that it's really not good to use this kind of language. You must write, here we can see, or the chart explain, or the graph explains, unless it's not favorable to use non-academic writing. Describing the task in your own word and then providing the overview of the given task is very much important if you want to have more than 6 bands. So which means, for example, which I told in first paragraph, like in first paragraph you have to paraphrase or rephrase. You have to also explain what the question wants from you. So you have to just rephrase the word and just explain in your own word that what the question wants. The overview should be the second sentence of your introduction, in which you dive deep into the paragraph. To make an overview, try to understand the beginning and ending of the given task, main features in detail, plus comparison and contrast of the data. For example, here we have this diagram in which there is an egg, and this transform into embryo, then tadpole, then this and this and this. So if I have this diagram in my IELTS exam, what I will do, this is the first paragraph, or you can say paraphrasing. The diagram illustrates the different life stages of frog. Tadpoles, which emerges from eggs in water, pass through a number of phases before going onto land and maturing into an adult frog. So in these 3 lines I give you overview of this whole picture, like what's the task about. This is the main theme of the task. Then we decide whether the task which is given to you is comparison, progression, or both. If the task is comparing, then use word like same as. If it's progression, then use the word like slight increase. In this picture we can't actually compare, maybe for this we cannot compare this adult frog to this one, but if they have a graph which I showed you recently, and in which you can compare, so you can use these kinds of vocabulary, same as, or a slight increase, a plunge, or hop into. There is a link just below in the description in which you can find pretty useful this kind of vocabulary. Then come the second paragraph. The second paragraph should contain the most prominent trend or striking characteristics. For example, if we're talking about this picture, we can see that what's the most prominent change, that egg is transformed into embryo. Then these 3 are usually same, and then on the 5th stage the tadpole has legs and tails, and in the 7th stage it's an adult frog. So in this picture we have 3 main or prominent changes, that egg transformed into embryo, and tadpole has legs and tails, and an adult frog is on the land. So second paragraph is usually the most striking or most prominent characteristic of a graph. Coherence and cohesion, it's better to link up your task, that you have to compare it's really favorable to compare your data with another data. For example, compare the slight change in impression with the most dominant change by using the word like in addition, furthermore, however. This kind of vocabulary is I will explain later. And then comes the conclusion. Adding conclusion can also help you to score more bands. If your task is already reached 170 words, then you can skip conclusion. And yes, now we come to the vocabulary. Okay, and the last point, it's very important to understand the graph and then write about it. You must have to understand it, what is the graph about. So now heading towards this, let me hop into this. This is task 1. Example, you should spend not more than 20 minutes on writing task 1 with 150 words. The academic region of the IELTS contain writing task 1 as bar charts. Okay, now this is a simple bar chart. This is the line graph, and this is the sample tables. For example, if the proportion of income adults and children spent on 4 common items in the UK in 1998. So if this is your task, you can pretty much compare this task. For example, children had 10% of their food, while men has 14% of their food. The highest is women. So if you write about that women had 39% of food, it will be really good for your points, because you are able to pick points. Most prominent changes, this is the 41. Music, girls, 40, this is the highest one. Why it's the highest? Then you must share it. And one more thing, that it's not really good to give your own opinion. For example, if I saw here that girls have 40% on their music, and I write that, oh yeah, girls like music, girls of UK always listen to their music, their favorite singer is this and that. No, it's not about this, because they want you to explain this graph. They don't want you to listen anything. They don't want to write anything else. So you have to keep yourself to the graph. Average household expenditures by major category. In 2020, we have 22% of housing, and in 1950 we had 72%. So this is the most prominent change. There is a maybe more than 50% of decline in housing. And if you talk about this 4.4 transportation, in 1950 we were just spending 4.4% of transportation, but in 2010 we are spending 14%, so it increases by 10%. So this is a very good comparable graph. You can compare much things. So first thing is to write the first paragraph, or you will have to give the introduction of the task 1, that the given 2 charts compare the household expenditures of 1950 and 2010, and then you will start that in 1950 we had 72.1% of expenditure according to our housing, but in 2010 the value plunged to 22%. It decreases. Or maybe if you if you can take this vocabulary, like it's a pretty good vocabulary, if you can use these words in your IELTS task 1. Yeah, for example, when you are starting your paragraph, the given, the supplied, the presented, the shown, the provided, you can use these kinds of words. When you are doing what is it? Is a chart, is a picture, presentation, bar graph, column graph, line graph, table data, or you can use good verbs like depicts or illustrates or outlines or describes, contrast, the comparison of, and then for example, like you have to give the overview, what, where and when the thing happened. For example, the diagram present information on the percentage of teachers who have expressed their views about different problems they face when dealing with children in 3 Australian schools from 2001 to 2005. So this is the actually first paragraph the author or the checker will expect you from. This is a very good paragraph, like introduction paragraph. Here it's the diagram and percentage of teachers. What about diagram? It's about the percentage of teacher who express their views about different problems in where? In Australian schools. Okay, from which time? From 2001 to 2005. So you have to explain 3 things in your introduction paragraph: what, where, and when. For example, generally speaking, you can read about this, and then you can like, if in the second paragraph, after finishing the introduction and overview of the task 1, you would be starting a new paragraph to explain the features of the task. The second paragraph is called the body paragraph or report body. So in second paragraph you can use these kinds of vocabulary according to the, or maybe the table data clearly shows that, the data suggests that, it is obvious that, it is clear that. You can use pretty much these kinds of vocabularies. And then increase, if for example it's the graph is like increase from this point to this point, you can use the vocabulary of rapid increase, rapid decrease, gradual increase, gradual decrease, and all these kinds of vocabularies there are actually verb which will show you the changes, whether how much changes. For example, deteriorate, you can, if there is a decrease in graph, you can use these kinds of vocabularies which will really have a good impact on the reader. Steady change, you can use steady, ceaseless, moderately, gradually, sequentially, swiftly. And if this is a 4%, a tiny fraction, 24%, you can also write, instead of 24%, almost a quarter, exactly a quarter, roughly 1/4, nearly 1/3, or maybe well over 3/4. So these are the vocabularies. Actually you must go through them, and then we will jump to, there is also a link in the video, in the description, in which I'm gonna also give you some example task for task 1.